Part 1, The Mysterious Return. Have you ever felt that there are family secrets that you never knew about? These secrets could be old wounds, truths that have been hidden for too long, or things that we can't even imagine, even when they are right in front of us. Today's story is about a young woman who had to face dark secrets and a cruel truth about the father she had trusted all her life. On a rainy day, with the atmosphere dark and damp, this young woman returns to her hometown after 20 years of absence. She is not a stranger to the village, but when she steps back into this place, everything seems to have changed. Remembering the beautiful days of her childhood, where she used to play with friends under the sunlight, there was no preparation for what was about to happen. Her mind is filled with questions about her father, the man who had abandoned her when she was very young. Surely, you may ask, why would a father abandon his own child? Why did his presence disappear so suddenly, without any explanation? This girl had grown up in the pain of her father's absence, but when she returned, she had no idea that she would step into a world full of secrets no one dared to reveal. As she steps through the threshold of the old house, the familiar yet strange feeling intertwines, and everything becomes hazy. The house, which she once lived in happily with her mother, now stands as a crumbling structure, tainted by time. But the most frightening thing is seeing her father, a man who once loved her, but now feels like a stranger. She doesn't know where to begin, but one thing she is sure of is that she can't let everything pass like this. She wants to understand why her father abandoned the family, why her mother had to endure such great pain. But little does she know, when she begins to dig into her family's secrets, she will face terrifying truths that even she couldn't have imagined. On her journey, she will meet old friends, neighbors, and relatives who knew about the family's past, things she had never been told. The pieces of the puzzle gradually reveal themselves, each word and action making her feel like a storm is washing away everything she once knew. And soon, she will realize that what happened is far more than just a father abandoning his child. The story behind it is a series of dark events that she must confront if she wishes to understand her past. What shocks her the most are the stories from her relatives. They tell her of the cruel things her father did to her mother. He didn't just abandon the family, he also mentally and physically abused her mother, leaving her unable to live a normal life. Everything she thought she knew about her father is now turned upside down, and now she can't understand how he could have done such things. The deeper she delves into the truth, the darker and more incomprehensible the secrets become. She starts to wonder if she ever really knew who her father was. And is there something still hidden behind his words and actions that she never noticed? She is not only searching for her father but also searching for herself, facing what happened and trying to understand the past. However, the truth she uncovers is not easy to face. She gradually realizes that not all secrets can be forgiven. A part of her wants to return to a peaceful life, to seek forgiveness and liberation for herself, but another part wants to expose what has been hidden all these years. She knows that the path ahead will not be easy, but it is a path she must take to find the truth about her family. The secret about her father is not just a family story, it is a tragedy filled with pain and loss. While she seeks the truth, she is also confronted with wounds from the past that have never healed. But will she find peace when everything has been pushed to the limits of cruelty? The story has just begun. The dark secrets of the family will continue to surprise you. This young woman will continue her journey, not only to resolve the issues within her family but also to seek justice for herself. Part 2, The Dark Secrets Unravel. As the days passed, the weight of the past began to suffocate her. The small village, once a place of childhood innocence, now seemed like a labyrinth of whispered secrets and bitter truths. Each step she took, each person she spoke to, only brought more layers of darkness to the surface. The people she once trusted, the ones who had witnessed her childhood, now had eyes that seemed to hide something more, something that didn't match the image of the family she had been raised to believe in. It wasn't long before the old neighbors started to speak, sharing fragments of memories from the past. One evening, she sat with Mrs. Lon, an elderly woman who had lived next door to her family when she was a child. Mrs. Lon had always been kind to her, offering sweet words and comforting smiles whenever she was sad. But now, sitting across from her in the dimly lit living room, her face was etched with a sorrowful expression, as though she was about to reveal something that had been buried deep within her for decades. "You know, dear Mrs. Lon began, her voice trembling as she fiddled with the corner of her shawl, "your father wasn't always the man you think he was. Back then, he was different. There were things he did to your mother, things that no one dared to speak of." The young woman felt her heart race as Mrs. Lon continued. "Your mother was a kind soul, she deserved so much more than the life he gave her. But he would get drunk, and when he was angry, he would lash out at her. No one dared to intervene, because your father had a way of manipulating everyone around him. He made us all believe he was the victim, that your mother was the one at fault." The words felt like a slap to her face. She had always seen her father as a distant figure, but never once did she imagine that he was capable of hurting her mother in such a way. The more Mrs. Lon spoke, the more her world shattered. Her mother, the woman who had always been her pillar of strength, had lived in constant fear, and she never knew it. Mrs. Land's words were not the only shock she encountered. The local priest, Father Min, who had known her family for years, also had his own version of events. He confessed that her father had come to him on several occasions, seeking advice on how to deal with his anger and frustrations. But the priest had never imagined the full extent of the abuse. "Your father came to me in confession, but he never once admitted what he did to your mother," Father Min revealed, his voice tinged with regret. "He spoke of his struggles with work, with life, but never the real problem, his violent temper. It's a shame that I didn't see it sooner, but I too was deceived by his charm." Each new conversation, each new revelation, chipped away at the image of the man she had once called father. She felt her world turning upside down, torn between anger and disbelief. How could this man, who had once shown her affection, be capable of such cruelty? How had he managed to manipulate so many people for so long, including herself? The pain of this realization was overwhelming. The deeper she dug, the more she uncovered about the abusive nature of her father's behavior. He had emotionally drained her mother, stripped away her self-worth, and yet, her mother had stayed silent. Perhaps it was out of love, perhaps out of fear, but the truth was clear now. Her mother had suffered for years in silence, all while her father continued to play the role of the victim. The more she learned, the more she began to piece together her own memories, memories that she had buried deep inside her for years. She remembered the nights when her father would come home late, reeking of alcohol, his eyes filled with rage. She remembered the sound of raised voices, the slamming of doors, and the quiet sobs of her mother. Yet, as a child, she had never understood the gravity of those moments. She had always thought it was just another one of their arguments, that everything would be okay the next day. But now, the truth was undeniable, her father's actions were far worse than she had ever imagined. As the days wore on, the weight of the truth became too much to bear. She knew she had to confront her father, to demand answers, to make him face the consequences of his actions. But how could she? How could she even begin to understand the man she had once idolized, the man who had been the source of her pain for so long? One evening, she decided it was time. She gathered the strength to face him. The confrontation would be difficult, perhaps even dangerous, but she knew she had no other choice. It was the only way to find closure, the only way to uncover the full extent of her father's sins, and perhaps, just perhaps, find a way to heal the wounds of the past. But as she stood at the threshold of her father's house, her heart pounding in her chest, she couldn't help but wonder, what would she find on the other side? Would he admit to everything, or would he deny it all? And what would happen if the man she had once called her father refused to face the truth? In that moment, she realized that this was no longer just a journey to find her father, it was a journey to find herself, to reclaim the pieces of her past that had been shattered, and to seek justice for the woman her mother had been, for the child she had once been, and for the woman she was becoming. The truth was waiting for her, and it was far more than she had ever bargained for. Part 3, Confrontation and Revelation. The night was colder than usual, and as she stood before her father's house, the wind seemed to carry a chill deep into her bones. Every step toward the door felt like a step deeper into an abyss. The memories of her childhood, the warmth of her mother's arms, the safety she had once felt, began to fade in the face of the bitter reality that now awaited her. What had happened to the man she once called father? Could he still be the same person she had once admired? Or was he just a stranger she had never truly known? She raised her hand to knock on the door, but her knuckles froze mid-air. Her mind raced, her heart thundered in her chest. What if he refused to talk? What if he denied everything? Could she even handle the truth? But she knew that if she didn't confront him now, she would never be able to move on. This was her chance to finally face the ghost of the past and demand justice for her mother, for herself, and for the years that had been stolen from them both. The door creaked open slowly, revealing her father, now an old man, his once strong features weathered by time and regret. His eyes flickered with a mix of surprise and apprehension as he saw her standing there. "Why are you here?" he asked, his voice hoarse, almost pleading. It wasn't the voice of the man she had once known. It was the voice of someone trying to protect themselves, someone who had been hiding behind a mask for far too long. "I need to know the truth," she said, her voice trembling with emotion, yet resolute. "I need to know why you left us, why you treated Mom the way you did. I need you to tell me everything." Her father stepped back slightly, his face hardening. "You don't understand. It's not what you think. There were reasons, things that happened." But she didn't want to hear excuses. She had heard enough. "No, you listened to me. You were cruel. You abandoned us, and you hurt Mom. I have spent my whole life wondering why. Now, it's time for you to answer for what you did." The silence between them was heavy, almost suffocating. She could see the struggle in his eyes. He wanted to deny it all, to pretend that nothing had happened, but the truth was written all over his face. Slowly, painfully, he sat down, his hands trembling as they rested on his knees. "Your mother. She was never happy with me," he began, his voice shaky. "She never understood the pressure I was under. I tried to provide for you both, but I wasn't strong enough. I couldn't handle it. And then I started drinking. I made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. But I didn't mean to hurt anyone." She listened, her heart racing as the words spilled out. It was as if her father was finally unraveling before her eyes, confessing to all the things she had never known. He spoke of the pressure he felt, the anger that built up over the years, and how he had tried to escape it all through alcohol. But nothing he said could excuse the cruelty he had inflicted on her mother, on their family. He may have been trying to explain, but she could see through the facade. This wasn't about pressure. This was about a man who had taken the easy way out, a man who had chosen to destroy instead of fight for the ones he loved. Her voice was steady now, her eyes burning with a mix of sorrow and fury. "Do you have any idea what Mom went through? What I went through? You think your excuses will make it better? You left us, and you turned your back on everything. He lowered his gaze, unable to meet her eyes. The man she had once seen as a hero, a protector, now looked small and frail. She could see the guilt, the regret, but it was too late for apologies. Too much had been lost. "Why didn't you ever come back?" she asked, her voice quieter now, filled with an aching emptiness. "Why didn't you try to make things right?" For a moment, there was no answer. He sat there, silent, as though lost in his own thoughts. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "I wanted to, but I was too ashamed. I didn't think you would ever forgive me. I didn't think I deserved it." The words hung in the air, heavy and bitter. He was still hiding behind his guilt, still refusing to take full responsibility for the pain he had caused. But in that moment, something within her shifted. She realized that she didn't need his forgiveness. She didn't need him to make things right. What she needed was to let go of the weight that he had placed on her shoulders all those years ago. "I'm not here to forgive you," she said, her voice firm. "I'm here to reclaim my life, to find peace with what happened. And I will. But you need to live with the consequences of your actions. You can't hide anymore." With those words, she turned and walked away. It was time to let go, time to stop being the prisoner of the past. She didn't know what the future would hold, but she knew one thing for certain: she was no longer defined by the mistakes of her father. She would build her own future, one where she could finally heal and be free. Conclusion: the end of one journey, the beginning of another. As she left her father's house behind, the weight of the past seemed to lift from her shoulders, though the scars would remain forever. The journey she had embarked on was not just about uncovering the truth about her family, it was about finding her own strength and reclaiming her identity. In the end, she had not found the answers she had expected, but she had found something far more valuable: closure. The road ahead would still be difficult. There would be moments of doubt, moments when she would question her decision to confront her past. But for the first time in years, she felt free. Free from the lies, free from the pain, and free from the man who had once held her captive in a web of deceit. Her journey was far from over. There would be healing to do, new relationships to build, and new challenges to face. But now, she was ready. She had faced the truth, and in doing so, she had found the strength to move forward, to live her life on her own terms. And that, in the end, was the greatest victory of all.